All right, hello everyone. It's about 58 minutes after 12 o'clock, almost 1 on this Friday. Did you guys get any rest at all? Hearing some of that thunder last night. I know, kind of a stormy overnight period. Not too bad so far today, though. Hello everyone. I'm Wave Meteorologist Brian Good. Welcome to this special edition here of Storm Talk Alert Day Update as we are going through the data trends from the last 24 hours, seeing how we are standing and looking here as we head into the rest of the upcoming weekend. Still some changes, and there will be more changes as we head down the road. So, as always, we appreciate your patience as we continue to fine-tune all the data as we roll through here for the next couple of days. And there is a change showing up too for next week that I need to mention. I'll get to that in a second. Hello, everyone, though, joining on the chat side. If you're watching on streaming, you're like, who are you talking to? There is a chat. You can see it on pop on the screen if you're watching on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and on X as well. That's where you can chime in for your comments and questions if you have any, or if you just want to talk to each other, which is fine. It's Friday. You guys like to chat. Cheaty chat with one another. So last night, some of you got quite a bit of rain. Some of you probably not as much. And you're like, I still don't see what the big deal is. And it's more of an issue where we have a lot of our counties, 34 counties, in fact, that we have to make sure we monitor and keep an eye on. Unfortunately, we've had several lives that have been lost due to flooding just in the past couple of weeks alone. So this is one of those setups that we got to make sure we're reaching as many people as we can. And if you're prepared and you're getting the latest forecast, you have a way to be notified if there is a flash flood warning or any type of a severe weather alert, then that's really step one to have a relaxing weekend, is just having all those things checked off your list. That's it. My job is to explain to you where we're at on the scientific side and our game plan on the meteorology of it. But it's up to you to then react to that and take care of it any way you need to. I don't think anyone needs to really fully cancel plans. I just think you need to always have that plan B in the back of your mind. Because I can tell you, the data I'm going to show you is going to look a little ominous at times. And there's some things I'll point out that look right, don't look right. But in this kind of a setup, there's not really a single model that's going to be exactly right here, of course. That's usually the case in most systems. But certainly in this one, where you're dealing with a very sluggish wind field in the Ohio Valley, but you've got a lot of energy trapped, a lot of energy and a lot of moisture trapped in one focused area of the Ohio River Valley, roughly the I-64 corridor. And because of that, there's a lot that can go wrong. And there's not a lot that will change. We don't have this powerful cold front that's going to move in and clear the air out in a big way. So we're going to be stuck in this for a bit. All right. So I'm going to walk you through what happened first, and we'll get into where we're going. Fair enough. I'll check in with you out every once in a while. I can barely see you all there to the side, but the chat's kind of flying by. So you deputized meteorologists in here, you guys can help out with some of the questions. Fair enough. Some folks are at Kentucky Kingdom, looks like they're in Hurricane Bay. It's nice to get the break today after a very rainy night we had last night. Some areas, again, got walloped with flash flooding. We had the same issues. Again, the viaducts went underwater. We had folks that were stranded on the roadways. We had several crashes that took place. Even some wind damage, too, from the storms that rolled in initially last night. Again, with the wet ground, even sub-severe wind is going to cause trees to get uprooted more so than just snapped. And I think we'll have probably similar reports of that for the weekend, too. And as I've been stressing, if you have a tree that is leaning in your yard, pay attention to that and be careful, because those are the candidates that we usually hear about later. And sometimes it's even hours after the rain ends that those trees could topple over. It's just eventually the weight gives in. But this is a radar estimate of some of the rainfall. Anywhere in yellow indicates at least 2 inches by radar estimates. And you get into orange, you're more than 4 inches. Notice the lack of higher totals there in Indiana. This was mainly a 64 and south issue, even though some areas did not get as much there around Bardstown. get you on a quick little tour. Get you into Litchfield, Grayson County, Hart County. You guys had several clusters of storms that really fired up late last night. Ryan Hoke was guiding you guys through that with our streaming coverage. I hope he doesn't have a repeat tonight. It does look later than what it did last night, so that's good. I'm sure Ryan's happy. Carson's probably not. Shower storms continue to Campbellsville with those heavier totals. You get into Louisville, boy, that band right at bad timing there, right in the morning hours, is very persistent. Produced more than 4 inches of rain in some spots, but it caused the biggest problems in Louisville, led us into a flash flood warning for the morning itself. The airport, by the way, 1.5 inches of rain. I think I had a little more than an inch at my house. If you have a gauge, let us know what questions you had or what totals you had in your area. Always fun to see those being shared. But I think, Chris, I saw your comment breeze by a moment ago about, yes, the tail end of this MCS. Again, it's like a comma shape, right? We were in the comma head overall. They passed through here, but the tail curled up all the way into Missouri, and that produced that tremendous amount of rain that curled up all the way into Missouri here. And at one point, the Weather Prediction Center referred to this as catastrophic rainfall that was happening. Some of the rainfall amounts of 10 to 12 inches fell last night in Missouri. Now, we haven't seen data showing any values like that in our area, which is good. We are impressed when we see values that show up at 4 to 5 inches in our area. Sometimes a little bit higher, but when we see those amounts, we're like, oh, that's not good. Imagine getting 10 to 12 inches of rain. I mean, in 97, we had the 10 inches of rain in Louisville and much of central Kentucky, and we saw what happened in 97. Of course, that was a different type of setup, but you get the idea. That much rain, and you just run into life-saving measures quickly, as fast as you can in that type of terrain, especially in the middle of the night. All right, so this is an area that obviously is very prone to flash flooding in a big way. There's going to be a ton of flash flood warnings. Even the brief shower will probably get a flash flood warning in this area. It's so just saturated in that region. So where we're at today is still a lot of moisture in the air. Now, the values have dropped a little bit in Indiana and along the northern part of Kentucky. Still humid, but they have eased back a bit, pushed a little bit more down into southern areas of the Commonwealth, down into Tennessee, but regrouping again because here is our next system. Again, there are 3 different vorts or waves that are passing through the Ohio Valley in this energy that's stuck between Missouri and Kentucky. And this is number 2. Number 3 will be tomorrow night. But this is number 2, and what that will do is it'll help bring back all these higher values that briefly sink down into the volunteer state. It'll pull them back north again. And that's when you get your rates of about 2 to 2.5 inches per hour back into the game plan. So this little break we're getting, take advantage of it. I can't run a few downpours. We'll look at the radar in a second. I can't run a few that'll pop, just a general idea. The sun's out and heating things up. You're going to get a couple of downpours. Now, lapse rates are pretty poor right now, so you're not getting a lot of action. You can't really get a lot of thunderstorms in a very warm, humid environment unless you have a trigger, right? So we've lost the trigger that has already moved out of the area, but another one is moving in. So as it gets closer, just like we saw last night, as it got closer to us, we started to light things up on the radar. More issues started to show up, and as it passed over us in the overnight, that's when the core issues took place. Well, based on timing, that looks to be a near repeat again as we head into this afternoon and overnight. At the moment, looking from the satellite image, you saw the sun that's out in northern Kentucky there. And there's our number two. Sorry, Austin Power reference there. The sun is coming out south of there. You can see they still have flood advisories that are still out, by the way, from all that flooding. It's like another round of flood warnings, too, got issued just from that area in Missouri last night. Okay, anyway, there is a pocket of wind today that is located roughly around Kansas City. It extends to about, I would say, West Kentucky, and then it fades as you head towards Southwest Indiana and around St. Louis. It's not overly strong belt of wind, but it's enough that there is a near repeat again with an MCS. You're going to have a straight line wind component, some downburst winds, and you're going to have an isolated tornado potential. It's the same area as last night. If you heard about friends or family had tornado warnings last night, it may be some of the same exact locations that may face that again. And I'm including West Kentucky in that storyline too. Once they got toward our area, we still had storms that were rotating At least a few were, but not to the degree of what the main fuel is going to be. Again, look at the clock. It's 1 in the afternoon. So as number 2 rolls on out, it's taking advantage of the warmest part of the afternoon. So therefore, there's much more to work with here. Just based on timing and geography of where we're at, we are always at the end of the storyline. But still, they slow down when they get here. So we end up with not as much of a severe thunderstorm wind tornado potential, but because they are so much slower when they get into our area, we then see our flash flooding potential start to go up. And that's going to be our concern again for the night ahead. All right, the Storm Prediction Center did update the slight risk, about the same. Looks like they expanded the marginal just to cover the leading edge there of the previous wave. But the site pretty much matches the wind belt into West Kentucky and St. Louis. And then it will dive to the southeast as it curls on by. So that's the reason why it's a lower end threat. But we're still in it. It's just not overly high. So I don't want you guys to get too worried on the severe wind side. Remember, even sub wind gust of 50 miles per hour can uproot trees. They don't cause as much problem with shingles being ripped off or homes being hit, and that, it's not serious on damage other than just tree damage, just because of the uprooting aspect of the soggy ground. That's the main issue I think that we would face if there's any type of damage from a thunderstorm that we're talking about. Otherwise, it's all about the flooding. Let me get you into a closer view, and you can see that again, that marginal does include just about everybody watching, not all of our counties. So then we get into, let's see what I had next. Trying to figure out which model to show you. I could just tell you simply, it's going to be a round of storms tonight, stormy at times tomorrow, another round of storms Saturday night into Sunday, and then a brief break. But I know you guys want to see the visual, right? You want to see what the data is showing. So I'm going to do that. I had a tough time trying to figure out which model I wanted to show, because I went back and looked at the history of all of them, and they weren't horrible, but they were off a bit. In some cases, up to 70 miles difference on the tracks. Some too far south, too far north, yada, yada, yada. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one of the CAM models. It actually was a little too far north. So as I show you this model, kind of keep that in mind, and I'll try to correct this as we go. Also, pay attention to the map, know where you're at on the map, and pay attention to the clock at the top left to know where on time we are referring to. All right. Let's start. Here we go with this afternoon. Here we are at 3 o'clock. It's showing a few isolated showers around. Yeah, maybe. It's possible just because of the heating of the day. We get into 5 o'clock, still fairly quiet. Someone was asking about the Bats game. Was it Bradley? If this trend holds, I think you'll be in good shape. Let's hope you don't get just one downpour with lightning near the first pitch, but right now it looks good. But then we get into the evening. Let me back that up a little bit. And you see the hint of those little pop-ups, and this is probably a little bit overdone. In fact, it likely is. But I do think a couple that won't be as large as the entire size of Breckenridge County, but a couple of smaller downpours may pop at 6 or 7 o'clock, because there is still a boundary draped over Kentucky from this previous storms. Now, this is one of the models that was a little far north with everything last night. So this may be more of a reality where it is more into Bowling Green and maybe just south of Evansville and southwest is where those may pop. But still, nothing too wild here. All right, we're okay still. So let's advance it. Let's get into, say, 9 o'clock tonight. Couple across Kentucky, especially Indiana, looks to be fairly quiet still compared to Kentucky, if this model holds right. We're going to take this hour by hour, is always the case, but the better moisture, as you saw on the PWATS, that beautiful green colored map that we're showing you, the green and light blues, your higher moisture is south, so it makes sense they're going to form a little more south than they are north until the number 2 wave gets closer. All right, so here we go. We're getting to 10 o'clock at night. Still fairly quiet, not as noisy as last night at 10. And then we get into when the actual core of the system rolls in out of Missouri, and it begins to show up as we head into 2 o'clock in the morning. Remember, this model was a little far north, so this may be a little further south by a row of counties from what you see. Don't focus on the exact location. Just know that that is the time period when things seem to have an uptick, is just after midnight. And we continue that trend as we head into 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. If there's any strong wind potential with this, it will be likely fading, but still 1 or 2 pockets of strong winds will be possible. But the biggest issue still at the very, very top of the list here is the rainfall rate. We are bringing back that 2 to 2.5 inches or higher on the rate at this point, and it's at 4 o'clock in the morning. This is when a lot of you are trying to sleep. So Camp says, again, if you live near a creek or an area that floods, you likely have already had issues. So if you have had issues, then you may have issues again tomorrow morning. If you've handled so far the recent heavy rain events and you've picked up 2 to 4 inches of rain out of the previous ones, then you should be able to handle this. But still, it's going to be a little loud. Could be quite a bit of lightning and thunder. It's also Saturday morning. So if you don't have to work, well, enjoy it. If it doesn't give you anxiety anyway, enjoy it. Let's continue. We get into the early morning hours of Saturday. I'm going to rewind that, sorry. And at this point, it's moving into Louisville, and you can see how you don't see as many of the deep reds at 6 a.m. because it continues to weaken. But a lot of heavy rain here. A lot of heavy rain. We don't like that. But it could be a very, very wet start to the day on Saturday. Then this is where things kind of go off the rails. So what happens here? Do we see the same repeat of what we did today? Does this move into Tennessee and fall apart and we end up with a little bit of sun? Perhaps. But remember, there is a third wave. And this one, the third wave is a little closer to number 2 than the one we had last night and the one tonight are. There's a big gap today. These next 2 are fairly close together on timing. So that's the only worry is I don't know how much of a break we'll get. I think there will be some dry time here on Saturday. So I'm not saying Saturday is going to be a washout. I think there will be some dry time. It just really depends on how the morning plays out. And let's hope it can exhaust itself out to where we can get a break and breathe for a moment before we get into more action of downpours popping into the late morning and midday. You get to 1 o'clock tomorrow. This doesn't look too bad. Looks almost similar to right now, right? But again, the break is shorter. So then we get into Saturday afternoon night. We don't wait until midnight tomorrow night for the third round. It gets going fairly quick, perhaps before we even get to sunset. And then here we go, this third round, which is showing a little bit more of a displacement to it, which is fair. There is a little bit of knocking that happens between one to the other, to the other, to the other. So there is a bit of a shift by a row of counties, north end or south. But in general, the radar lights up. Flash flooding will be the biggest threat. I think where it's been pointing to southern Kentucky seems to be spot on. A lot of the data has been indicating that Kentucky, and especially along and south of parkways, continue to be a spot to really watch here for some of the highest of rain totals. If you're north and east of Louisville, yes, you are in the zone to get heavy rain, even a gusty thunderstorm. But the really high totals, don't see them as much of a concern as we do in Kentucky. Could you get an isolated 4-inch total, say in Madison? Yes, you could, but it would be very isolated. Much more of an opportunity or potential to see that into the parkways in south into Kentucky. Here we are at Saturday night, 9 o'clock, still ongoing. We get into 11 o'clock. That's the northern side of that third wave that is now moving in. And this is where the model stops. Well, that's not fun. But I can see further than that. And I will tell you that as we head into Sunday, that same low is still going to be over southern Kentucky. Now, the only model that seems a little off here to me right now is the NAM. The NAM actually has it still over Louisville on Sunday. In fact, it doesn't even move it all day. It doesn't even move it even on Monday morning. It just gets stuck. Now, I hope that's not the case. I really hope that's not the case. But I do think the southward drift into Tennessee is going to be rather slow. So we have extended the alert day out for all of Saturday to get you into Saturday night's wave, the third wave moving in. Could this be extended to Sunday? It could, but there is still some support to push this enough to where we can salvage some Sunday time here. So I don't want to portray that, Sunday is going to be an all-day threat as well. Not yet. Not yet. Carson is going to be working with us on the team and seeing how things will play out this weekend. If we need to extend it, we will. I think it's best to go slow with these scenarios, baby steps, one time period at a time and see how things validate. You want to see how the storm performed, compare it to the data, and then get a better handle to predict what's next. If you just went on with one model all the way into Monday, then you're going to have a lot of errors that'll happen here. So we're trying to go slow with this. But I think it's fair to extend the alert day at least into Saturday. Sunday is possible. If you're in southern Kentucky, though, you can tell by looking at this map, you will be the last to get rid of it. Number 3. You may hold on to it all day on Sunday near and south parkways, but Indiana, you have a chance to maybe break completely free out of it and get some sunshine and some dry weather later into the day. Looking at our flash flood guidance, you guys love this map. This is what, as of right now, what can the ground handle in an hourly rate of rainfall? Remember what I said the rainfall rate is about 2 or will be 2 to 2.5 inches per hour. And this is the color-coded map showing where the rate limit is before you run into flash flooding. If you get into the blues, you can handle more than anybody else. And notice that Indiana is in much better shape. I mean, you're not great. All right, it's a light blue. You're still in that 1 inch category, 1.5 or so. It's not great, but you're better than everyone else on getting at least a little bit more of the rain to soak in first before you have a problem. But there are certainly some issues here and around Louisville and a good chunk of southern Kentucky, not in great shape, inch or less. Louisville in particular, though, is really interesting because of the rain we just had. It's showing that like a 1/4 to 1/2 inch of rain will get us into a flash flooding status. So now this map will gradually improve as today wears on. As we dry out every hour of the day, this value will start improving, right? It doesn't get stuck at this level. The more dry time you add, the better things can be as you have a break. If we were to get a downpour right now that pops over the city of Louisville, if it produced a 1/4 of an inch, we're already in a flash flood warning, is what I'm basically trying to say. What will this look like when the rain moves in tonight? I would say a little closer to 1 inch, 3/4 to 1 inch. So if we're talking about 2 inches or so per hour, you can tell already that we're going to have a lot of flood advisories and a lot of flash flood warnings with these kind of values. So we had some impressive amounts last night. What I decided to do is just show what is the likely additional amount of rainfall we're looking at. And then we'll take it all the way into Sunday as it stands now. I think 1 to 3 is reachable, and it won't be a general 1 to 3, kind of like a snow forecast. It will be in blotches. I mean, you'll get a 2 and a 3 here, maybe only a 1/2 inch in a couple areas. Then you get another 1.5 inches over here, and then a 2. I mean, it's going to be just blotchy because it's thunderstorm based, and thunderstorms are not overly widespread all the time. They have pockets where they intensify and weaken. Blah 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 blah. Same with nearer the river and south, 2 to 4 inches. And again, this is additional rainfall. But I still think because of the idea of number 2 and number 3, those next 2 waves that move in and they focus so much on Kentucky before they drift into Tennessee, there's still that zone where we can still get at least 4 inches of rain and additional added on here, which will put some of you over 1/2 foot for a grand total by Sunday. So a lot to watch as we evolve into the setup for grand total on rainfall. Any questions that I can answer before I get into the concern I've got for next week here? And part of me is I kind of have to lean over here to read over some of the comments. Hey, Chris, is flash flood guidance based on radar estimates? Yes, in general, they are. There's probably other factors, but in general, yeah, it's radar estimates on it and terrain. So it also knows it's an urban environment. So it also knows the city of Louisville is a little more prone. Day 2. Oh, yeah, it is 1. Push northeast. Day 2 already came out. Usually it should be at 1:30. Thank you, Chris. Let me take a look at that real quick. He's talking about the SBC. There was the day 1 I showed you in Missouri. Let's look at day 2. And yep, day 2 is. Day 2 is all the way into, looks like Breckinridge County, down in Greensburg as well. So that's, it was here in Tennessee. We were already in the marginal, but yeah, it's improved up to the north and east. And again, it just depends on the spin. This will be the 3rd wave, part of the first one and part of the second. It's weird because the way SBC's time frame is, of 7 to 7 on their window. Some of this is one element, one MCS, and another one's the other MCS. So it gets a little weird. But thank you, Chris, for pointing it out. So yeah, that's not too surprising, but it makes sense. Anywhere on the southern side of these, that's where you got to watch for your bigger issues. Sorry, I may play this back out and then get back to your questions. We're from no rain to being a duck, Judy says. Yeah, that's very true. Very true. At least we don't have to worry about the watering. Now I got to worry about mold, right? And my house has had issues with humidity here lately, trying to keep, because a lot of AC units will overcool to try to reduce the humidity level. So if you notice your AC is running longer than normal, even though you have it set at a higher temperature, it's because it's trying to, if you don't have a dehumidifier on, especially, it's trying to compensate and cool your house to rid of the humidity. So dehumidifiers really help in these situations. Hey, Jim. Sorry, there's a lot of questions. Upper level winds to keep storms moving. To an extent, it keeps the MCS moving. That is what will move it along. But it's also at the same time when it gets to the I-65 corridor, they slow down. So then it has the appearance it's moving fast, but in reality, it's just rotating around the low. So they're curling up around the low, then curling back around again. So the whole thing looks like it's moving fast, but in reality, MCS is moving very slow, but the storms are moving around it in a counterclockwise fashion. So it depends on where you're at. If that little red L, when it moves on by the center of the low, if you're on the northern side, a lot of the downpours will develop right over you, coming in from the east at times. If you're on the eastern side of it, you're going to see it move in from the south. And if you're in our southern counties, a lot of times it'll move over you or move west, almost from west to east, almost due west to east, is where a lot of your motion will come from on storms. But it just depends on where you're at in relation to the MCV or MCS as it moves on by. It gets very complex, but with them being MCVs, they're a little easier to track because we can tell where each spin is, and it's just a matter of watching them. But we do have to babysit these every hour. MCS stands for Mesoscale Convective System, or some people say MCC, which would be Mesoscale Convective Complex, or MCV, Mesoscale Convective Vortex. So they have all kinds of nicknames. I just call it, the whirling dervish. We'll leave it at that. Buy local, yeah, on dehumidifiers. Yeah, they got them around. If you have problems with that, not everyone does, but if you do, there you go. What'd you say, Jennifer? Sonora got 5 inches of rain. Yeah, and see, that's an issue. If you can get another, 3 to 4 inches of rain on top of that, you see the problem. Now, thankfully, you're getting a break, right? Unlike Missouri, got all at once, which we've seen that happen here before, but they get all at once. We at least are getting 8 to 10 hour breaks. At least today we are. Tomorrow a little bit shorter, more like a 6 to 7 hour break. But we're getting some breaks, and those breaks do help. They really do. They're not perfect. They keep us still at a constant issue of flash flood warnings coming out and getting issued. I feel for the Weather Service because it is a lot to track and keep on top of, because flash flood warnings tend to go out about 90 minutes, sometimes a little longer in duration, and you end up with storms overlapping a lot. And then you got to keep up all the flooding reports. Just again, if you don't have to really travel at all, this is one of those weekends. It's good, just chill out kind of weekend. During the day when you need these breaks, venture out. You can do what you need to, but especially at night, just stay at home. Be easier and safer. To be honest, if you're going to go camping, I'm not trying to discourage you from going camping, but obviously, if you're going to go camping, you need to know where to go. If these creeks get out of their banks and you get one of these complexes that moves over you that just doesn't either move very much or it keeps redeveloping over and over and back building, then you need to take some action and get to a safe spot, right? Ohio River concerns. So far, not yet. We'll look at rivers. Rivers are delayed on the rise and fall of rain events. So I'm sure, especially even your younger streams and smaller creeks and streams, Beargrass will go up rapidly. Salt River tends to go up fast. Rolling Fork. Those smaller rivers and streams do react quickly to heavy rain events, but larger river systems are a little slower to react to that. So we'll look at that more into next week. I think we'll sort of see some influence, but not an immediate. Okay, so let me get to what I have as a concern next. Because we know the heat dome's coming back, right? Big old blob of heat into the nation's heartland. In fact, let me show you that. This is going to set us into a lot of 90s in the plains, even some 100s that will take place. I mean, it's a massive amount of heat. The problem is the eastern side here because the Atlantic is developing a block. And we've got our little lows that are kind of, working their little way. That's what they sound like. They work their way through the Tennessee Valley. My concern is I'm starting to see signs here that the very last one, which will be Sundays, as it moves down into Tennessee, it may actually stall and then reverse and get caught back in the flow and try to build back north and come back for yet another visit. I don't know if it's going to be here or Missouri, but it will drift back north. It may take a couple days, probably Wednesday of next week, but it could come back for yet another round of high humidity and showers and storms. So instead of getting the dry heat we were hoping for on the eastern side of this, the typical quiet pattern, I'm now seeing a signal that our last MCV here may actually try to act like a tropical system, if you will, and drift back to the north. I hope that's not the case, but there's no doubt the data in the last two runs is hinting a little bit more of a signal for that than it had been. And it does fit the pattern to where I've seen this many times. Wouldn't that be great? At this point, we're going to have to name it something. You guys can name it if you want. But yeah, at some point that will begin to build back. So I am going to keep at least low end rain chances in just to monitor that. So let me show you the 10-day real quick. Where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at? I know I got it here somewhere. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Oh, yes. There it is. So here's the 10-day as it stands now. And we're going to go with, obviously the alert day. Well, I got it out to Sunday morning, but it'll be the pre-dawn hours of Sunday morning. So not all day Sunday, at least not yet. Okay. So hang tight. I'll adjust that so you'll see it on TV later. It'll have just Sunday morning. But you see where we get the break, and then you get into the storm chance that ramps back up again as you head into Wednesday and Thursday as that tries to build back north again. We'll see if that happens or not, but there's at least a growing signal that is trying to happen. I really don't want to see that. No one does. When are we ever going to mow? I mean, I still have yards I can notice in my neighborhood that didn't mow from the last time we went through heavy rain. So they're forced now. Even I think it's got parrots flying through it. All right, any questions that are simple enough for me to answer right now? No repeat visitors, Kristen says. How you doing, Kristen, by the way? I haven't seen you in a long time. Hector the heat bubble. Well, we got to name the low, right? We don't want to name the high pressure. Any cooler weather, Brayden says. Well, that's still showing up at the end of July. This is going to throw a catalyst in it. It's still showing the signal. I still think this heat dome is going to shift a little more west. And the quicker that happens, the more we can get into that more cooler, at least I say cooler, but not cool. Cooler than normal, which normal is about 89. So as long as we get like to 85 even, I would be happy with that. 85 and lower humidity, just, typical summer stuff. Nothing too wild. I think we would appreciate. But the signal's still there for the end of July, but we got to get through this blah first. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. We got to get ready for the 3 o'clock, and we've got some maps to look at, and data's coming in. The Euro's coming in about 15 minutes, so we're going to look over it for next week's set of 2. Listen, thank you all for watching. I know we've been on a lot here lately, and we pay attention to your names. We see your comments. We may not always acknowledge all of you, but we see you. And we are always taking mental note of everybody, and we do appreciate it. And I hope that that this ends up being, I never want to wish for a bust in a forecast, but I really hope we end up with a much tamer version of this weekend, and we can get rid of some of this alert day stuff. But I think right now, this kind of environment, especially since we've had a loss of life, in the past couple of weeks. I just want to make sure that we are all on the safe side here on caution. And I'm pretty sure you guys can understand that. All right, everyone, I got to run. I'll be on at 3 o'clock today. Make sure to watch today starting at 5. It'd be Brian Schlonsky's last day with us here at Wave. So make sure to watch Brian and Meyer today at 5 o'clock. All right. See you guys soon.